So all of this to say the data doesn't tell you how to solve the problem, but it does tell you exactly where to look.
Yeah.
So that told us we need to look at our marketing or,
Mhm.
how we're getting our leads or whatever.
If you don't want to be corporate-y, that's fine. You're running a hobby business, and that's totally fine,
Mhm.
but don't expect to scale it. Are you wrapping cars more than 12 hours a day, every day? Working nonstop but can barely get by? Burnout, missing deadlines, and wondering just how much longer you can keep this up?
That was us too. We started our wrap shop buried under $250,000 in debt, and it felt absolutely impossible. But we dug out, built a profitable shop, and are still in the trenches of owning and operating a wrap shop. We're here to share what we learned along the way so that you don't make the same mistakes that we did.
And we're here to help you with the business side of the wraps, like pricing, building a team, streamlining your systems, ultimately so that you can run your shop and your shop stops running you.
Welcome to the Wrap Ops Podcast, brought to you by Wrap Fam Unleashed. So the time of making decisions just off of your gut is over. And I'm a big fan of gut decisions. We are going to start making data-driven decisions. So we are not going to run your wrap shop on drama anymore. We are going to run it on data. So the big thing here in this episode is do you do this? So again, if your shop feels chaotic, feels dramatic, it is probably because you're making so many decisions off of just emotion and just winging it. And who knows, it may not even be a huge problem. It may just be an emotion of an employee that you're really feeling. And so you act on it. We don't want you to remove your instinct. We just simply want you to sharpen it with like actual facts and actual data. So you're going to start forecasting your problems instead of just firefighting them to get through it. So you're going to eventually see, okay, when we solve this problem based on the data, this will be our next problem. And then your life is going to be so much less stressful when you kind of know in 2 months, I'm going to have to hit sales hard. In 2 months, I'm going to have to hit hiring hard. And you can kind of plan accordingly. So if you want to grab the reins on your business and stop being very stressed out all the time, this, I would say, is the episode for you. So cool. So, Andrew, how do we get data in the first place, being a small business that doesn't have the resources of like hire a person to do just that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like don't overcomplicate it.
Mhm.
Uh, by all means. So I would say the first thing you want to do is just kind of maybe break it down. It obviously depends a little bit by your roles and who you have, but to break it down into like segments of your business. So like you have your sales and your marketing, you have your design and print, you have your install department.
And those might all exist even if you have one person running three of them, just to put
Yeah,
that
they
out there.
they all still exist, even if you're the solo person running the show
Yeah.
here. You still have kind of departments, and I like to try to zoom out. And I would say ultimately we're going to narrow this list down, like the whole keep it simple, stupid kiss.
Kiss.
uh, but to start out is just look at each department individually, and if you could not speak to the person that's running the position. If you could you could not verbally just communicate to them. You could only look at numerical values and metrics to know that that department is running well or it's running healthy. What would those things be?
Mhm.
Anywhere from 1 to 15. 15 is way too much, but just to
I would recommend 3 to 5.
yeah, but I
But
mean,
yeah, you can
just to get
initially
your
list
brain
off
going of like, let me just start
and then
listing
narrow
these
it
things
down.
off, and then narrow that down to your point of just kind of like 3 to 5 that really matter. I promise you, you can do it. You can get it down to like if these 3 or 5 metrics are all on par and hitting what the goal is, then I know that department's running healthy. Um, that is definitely where I would try to start.
And the inspo for this, like so that we don't like take full credit, again, is I highly recommend reading that EOS book, The Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Mhm.
They map out completely how to do this. We read the book and we've kind of come up with like our own little
Yeah,
version
you
of it. You don't have to do exactly
Yeah,
what they
the
do.
book's obviously generic. It's not tailored towards, hey, here's how to do it exactly in a
hmm
wrap shop.
But
But
if you want more information and you want a huge deep dive, that would be the book I would go to
mhm,
if I was you. So this is definitely inspired by that. But yeah, so in our shop, to break it down a little bit, like sales, for example, you could track number of leads, number of quotes sent, the number of weeks we are booked out, which is arguably like a huge one for us,
Mhm.
and our close rate. And it's just as simple. We literally have an Excel sheet or a Google sheet, whatever you use, where we're just entering those four values in for that whole week. And that's it. Like, no, you don't have to track anything else. So I think sometimes when it comes to data tracking, we get so caught up in like the QuickBooks reports
Mhm.
and things like that. And it just gets very overwhelming and confusing. So it can be as simple as four values that you have to record once a week. And then it's up to, well, we'll get to this, up to whoever to make sure those actually get recorded.
Yeah, and we record from like our sales standpoint. We record the number of calls, like number of inbound calls
Mhm.
that we received. We record the and we've talked about it a lot in previous podcasts, but we record our follow up process. So, like, are we actually sending out the follow ups on the correct cadence?
We
Um,
literally have a drop down for like, what is the vibe of the customers this week? Is it smiley face? Is it
mhm.
neutral face? Or is it angry face? Like, it's like that. And it's emojis literally. And our front desk person selects like happy face.
Yeah,
It's that plain of just like, is everyone good? Or like, do all of our customers hate us right now?
right.
So that we can very quickly see this report and be like, okay, things aren't as bad as they might feel over maybe one incident that's going on
Yeah.
or something.
And then number of quotes sent. We track that per day, but it tallies per week as well.
Mhm.
And that's probably and the number of weeks booked out. That's probably about it
Yeah.
from
And
that.
if you kind of, sorry to interrupt you,
Mhm.
if you kind of think about it too, when you're coming up with your metrics, you can also like ask yourself, why does this number matter to me? You know what I mean? And maybe you have two values that are telling you the same bit of information.
Mhm.
So you brought up one is how many times does the phone ring? But the other one is how many quotes did we send? So
Mhm.
if the phone's ringing 100 times a day, but we're only sending two quotes, there might be a disconnect in whoever is running sales on
Yep.
that because it's like, okay, the leads are coming
Like
in.
the phone is ringing. Why are
Yeah,
we not
why are quotes
sending
not being
quotes?
sent?
Yeah.
And then all the way to why isn't it being sold? So you
Yeah.
kind of see your funnel in action. That being said, we've seen the calls drop dramatically, and we realize it might have been something as simple as like we got way knocked down in website SEO. So
Yeah.
it very
Or
quickly,
it's seasonal, it's trend. Like, yeah, our calls went to zero, but it's the week of Christmas.
yeah, absolutely. So all of this to say the data doesn't tell you how to solve the problem, but it does tell you exactly where to look.
Yeah.
So that told us we need to look at our marketing or,
Mhm.
how we're getting our leads or whatever. So just keep that in mind.
And then that's just that one department. So design and print, they have a whole different, that's a whole different department. There's whole different metrics that would gauge the health and effectiveness of that position.
Mhm.
One of them being from like the print standpoint is just like simply put, our prints ready, in
On
a
time.
box, before the vehicle arrives. And that is a metric that literally gets tracked on every project every week,
Mhm.
to make sure that their print operator isn't, a bottleneck within the whole thing. Because later down the line, when we get to like our install department and stuff of hitting deadlines, well, if we're not hitting our deadlines, now you got to start figuring out why.
Mhm.
And if there's a trend between us not hitting deadlines and us not getting prints on time,
Which has been a trend.
which,
Not from our print operator. This was back when we had too much on someone's
Mhm.
plate.
Yeah. And then I shared in a previous podcast, like our printer went down for like a week and a half. So there was a trend there of like prints weren't ready on time. Wasn't the print operator's fault. Like her machine went down.
Mhm.
But it very quickly allowed us to see, if again from the beginning, act like if you had these metrics that you could look at, but you could not verbally communicate with anyone on the team. If I continuously saw, oh, my prints aren't ready on time, that there is a problem in that department. And then hopefully if I can't verbally talk to her, um, there's a comment section of like, we're not hitting this, printers down. Like, so anyway, that again, that department is, I think, what, like three metrics or something like that is all we track in our design and print department. And that tells us
Keep it simple.
that it's running healthy.
Yeah. And then for our install department, we track our deadlines hit, like very easy,
Yeah.
metric there. Like, are we getting the cars out when we say we're going to? Do we have any fixes? The amount of overtime hours. So, just the way we kind of have our install team tiered is there's different pay rates for like if you have mandatory overtime or not. So, it's like, is the whole team slacking and the one person that has to work mandatory overtime is completely carrying the team, or is everyone really stepping up? That was why we added that one. And then, of course, labor rate, which is essentially, are we moving our hands
Yeah.
fast enough? Or it could possibly be, are we not quoting the jobs correctly? So, again, it's not going to tell you what or how to fix the problem. It's just going to tell you where to look and show you, okay, boom, 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 problem.
Yeah.
So like, let's look into here and figure out root causes.
And I know from looking at these metrics, a problem that we have solved in our own business is we used to book full removals and full rewraps in 1 week. And we
Okay, there
realized,
was a magical month where we had like 3,
but
and it put us into the biggest poop tornado
but
ever.
but to that point though, that poop tornado that we were in,
Yeah.
we were able to have our goggles on, and once we wiped the poop off our goggles
Yeah.
and looked at our numbers, we saw that 3 weeks in a row we weren't hitting our deadlines.
hmm
What was the trend? The trend was
The
full
full
removal
removal,
with a
full
full
wrap.
wrap should not be on 1 week. We need to book it for 2.
Yeah.
And that right there, it wasn't the installer wasn't moving their hands fast enough. It wasn't any of that. It just the removal
It broke our
takes, yeah, it just
process.
broke our process.
Yeah.
Removal takes time, and it's a very variable time. Like
Yeah. Sometimes
the wrap
it's
shop
5
owners,
hours. Sometimes it's
yeah,
40.
like we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. We've all been there where
Yeah.
where removal will take 100 man hours or something crazy.
And it's also easier to say it's going to take 2 weeks and be like, surprise, it's done.
Yeah,
Which is, of course, the goal.
exactly.
But yeah, that was a weird
hmm
one. But uh, I mean, 3 weeks in a row, it was like deadline not being hit. And it was totally the scheduling of that. And that was, if you've heard previous podcast episodes of ours, we'll book our shop based off of revenue. So our front desk person was doing everything they needed to do.
Yeah.
They were hitting the revenue goal, but it's just that it worked on paper. It didn't work in real life.
Yep.
And it was something that we had to figure out. And now the front desk person knows, okay, we have to split those up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good one. And then finance, that's all you. You're our finance guru.
Yeah. So finance is obviously there's some finance metrics that make sense to your business. And then I think an underlying thing to all of this is going to be like identify what gives you anxiety as well. Is it
It's facing me.
is it really?
I just realized this camera's facing me. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. I don't think you can change it mid
I don't think I
mid
can
roll.
change it.
Here, we'll turn it around.
Turn it on, Andrew. We'll get you at the end.
All right.
We'll go an episode without messing up once.
All right, guys. If you're on YouTube, thank you for welcoming me to the podcast.
Yeah, sorry, you've just been staring at me talking, just hearing Andrew's voice. Okay,
So
tiny glitch, might be.
Yeah. So to continue on finance, as kind of the an additional department, as you will, that I don't think you should ignore. Although if you're running a wrap shop, it is the one that you don't like actually see. So all the other ones we talked about, you have people that are actively answering the phone and talking to the customers. You have designers, you have print operators, you have installers. You probably are very far away from having someone that's officially in finance and is running your accounting department. Um, but it doesn't mean that that isn't a department, and there are not metrics that matter. So keep it short, keep it simple. Back to that KISS thing there. Maybe you're just tracking like gross revenue. We track gross revenue on like a weekly basis, and then debt payoff. If you're in debt and that's a good metric just for you to see weekly of like, okay, we're chunking away, we're paying our debt off. Cash on hand is another thing that is probably important to just make sure whatever you're comfortable with as an entrepreneur. You have to figure out what your own risk tolerance is. But say you have a month of expenses on hand, 3 months, 12 months, whatever it is that you need to be like, okay, I'm comfortable at writing this. Another one is maybe accounts receivables. So that's you've completed work, and if you work with some of the fleets that we work with, it may be a net 30. So there are definitely times, Tanner can attest to, I'm coming home stressed because cash on hand's getting a little low. And I immediately can just go to our metrics, figure out like, okay, what's our cash on, or not cash on hand, sorry, what's our accounts receivable? And I'm like, okay, I feel better. Like,
Yeah, like the money is there. It's just
it's
not physically in our
yeah,
bank account
it's
right
in
now.
transit. It just
Yeah.
hasn't made it to us yet.
Hmm.
So I don't need to panic. Um,
Or make an emotional decision and run a shop off a drama,
exactly,
aka the title.
exactly.
So, we went over the metrics that we want to track, and we went over
Mhm.
that it can be as simple as a Google spreadsheet.
Yeah,
How, like, are you the one that gets all of these numbers and assimilates it every week, or how do you do the who
yeah.
of
No,
who gets these numbers together?
that's a good question. No one on your team should know any of those metrics. It should 100% be you burning the midnight oil, getting all of your numbers on your own, to only look at for yourself.
Hopefully, that's not made into a soundbite. That's
um,
rage bait.
it's complete sarcasm, and it's the complete opposite. We try to push, as if you, and, the hierarchy of like us as the owners, we try to push all of that down as much as possible and straight to the source as much as possible. So
I would
our does
actually counter you on that. I would say we don't push it down as much as our team pushes it up.
That's fair.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
team pushes the information up to us. Go ahead.
that no, that's fair.
Arguably the same thing, but I think a better way to look at it.
I like that framing better.
Because the
Yeah,
people that are in charge of, the design, so we have our print operator is recording the print operation metrics.
yeah,
Our installers can do the install metrics. Front desk does the front desk sales metrics. So they're self-assessing
right.
their own metrics and then sending it to us.
Yeah. And
So
that allows them to see the metric, not that any other metric doesn't matter, but that allows them to see and self-report on the metrics that matter the most,
mhm.
as far as the health of their department. And that
And their
self
job performance.
it is, yeah, it is part of their job performance for
Mhm.
sure. And it really helps, with that accountability and that ownership, of each person taking, of their role. Can't tell you how many times I thank my team members for just taking ownership of their role. And part of that is, running keeping track of the numbers on the sheets.
Yeah. And then, as the owner or the leader, whatever your role may be in your business, you can't just get those sheets in your inbox and do absolutely nothing with them, because you're just training your team that those numbers don't matter. You're not using them for anything, and it's just busy work that you have them doing for funsies. So you want to make sure that you bare minimum interact with the sheet. You can comment and ask questions. You can comment and say, "This looks great. Great job this week." It can be that simple, because that just lets them know, "Hey, I looked at this
Yeah.
and I appreciate you for filling it out." We have production meetings once a week where we go over the metrics with the team. That being said, not every member sees every single metric.
Yeah, that's
So you do have to be strategic. They may not know like how much cash is in the bank account, but they'll know if deadlines were hit and if prints are done on time and things
yeah,
like that.
to that point. So each department has their own set of 1 to 3 to
Hmm.
our front desk position. Definitely their tracking sheet has the most. It might even be up to like 15 different things that get tracked on their sheet.
Yeah.
But
But they're arguably customer service and sales.
yeah,
So,
they're reporting for a lot.
mhm.
Um, But to that point, as far as what we go over as a team on a damn near weekly basis is 6 metrics.
Mhm.
So we compile from, whatever that is, anywhere from 15 to 30 different metric points across all departments, funnel down to or boil down to what are the 6 that matter the most, that will tell us if we're running a healthy operation or not. But more importantly, that the team can, like, their actions like actually have an effect on. So to your point of cash on hand, as the owners, that makes sense because we need to make sure that we have payroll funded. Like, we need to know that that customer may not pay us for 30 or 60 days, but it doesn't mean we're not going to be able to, pay the rent and pay the payroll. But our shop operations assistant doesn't need to know that metric. The metric doesn't matter to them. They can't affect that metric. But what they can help in is deadlines
Yeah.
and making sure that we're hitting deadlines.
Yep. So you can pick and choose, who's in charge of what and who gets to see what. And then the other cool part about this too is when you're trying to give feedback to the team, they no longer can say like, "Oh, you're being a jerk" or something. It's like, here are the numbers.
Yeah.
Like it is data, and the data doesn't lie. To where you don't. It pretty much eliminates arguments on anything like that. So, anywho, it's really great to just get rid of that gray area and just to provide hard evidence. That being said, on our reports, there is a section where you can leave notes. So Andrew mentioned earlier that the printer went down.
Hmm.
It was a cluster in here with that printer going down. So that would have made it onto the notes that said, yeah, I know all the deadlines were missed. We didn't have prints. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
so you have to keep that in mind when especially when you're compiling your data. So the cool part about getting weekly data is you can very easily average it out to come up with monthly or quarterly and even yearly trends. So, and that's really easy to do in your Google Sheet. You can automate that to do it for you. And then we share that at our quarterly meetings
Hmm.
that we have so that we can say we did better this quarter, we did worse, or this was a huge issue we faced and you can see it exactly right here. So let's try to not do that this week. But yeah, it just really helps you with making those key decisions. And then our previous podcast, we talked about identifying your biggest fire and assessing. It's kind of like if there's no cash in the bank, you probably shouldn't be worrying too much about just something so small on
Yeah.
your metric sheet. Um, so yeah, it's just going to tell you where to look. So cool. I also did a little section here on some objections that I think you, as the listener, may be feeling. And you're like, I hate this podcast because I think this feels too corporate for one of them.
Hmm.
So that's a funny one that I think we deal with a lot. We've been told as an insult, like you guys are too corporate-y.
I think that you have to, as an entrepreneur, you have to, and it, if you don't want to be corporate-y, that's fine. You're running a hobby business, and that's totally fine.
Mhm.
But don't expect to scale it.
It's like you can't expect to be a big business if you don't act like a big business.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to treat your employees like garbage and blah blah blah. But if you feel that keeping track of your data and your numbers
Hmm.
and your money and whatnot is too corporate, then you're just not going to be able to grow your business, and you're just going to stay stagnant
Right.
at where you're at. So that's my objection to you on the this feels too corporate. My second one is my team will absolutely hate this. What
They
are your
will.
thoughts on that one?
If you've never held your team accountable to certain metrics and performance bars, yeah, they probably will hate it,
And
and
the
they
wrong
will,
people will leave.
and the wrong people we leave, they'll weed them out,
I would
or
argue the argument too would be like you're micromanaging me. Is probably what they would say too. When you introduce this like, hey, we're going to start tracking these metrics.
yeah, that's fair.
But the thing is you have to remember you're steering the ship, and if they want to jump off, that's their right to jump off, and that's fine because
Uh,
I'm steering it this way.
I think to that point, you could bring them in, loop them in when it comes to making that list of metrics to track for the health of their department.
You could try, but I also can go back through our memory, and there's multiple people who would have like absolutely laughed in our face if we tried. But that's a
And
big indicator of that's the wrong
that's just
person.
not the right person. Yeah.
Yeah. So you should want people on your team who dislike confusion and who really like growth.
Hmm.
And this is going to help kind of draw the line in the sand and see who's on board with you and who's off board with you. So it may cause some turnover. But you
Not
have to realize it's kind of a short term issue for long term gain.
not all turnover is bad turnover,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I agree. The third objection that I think you might be feeling is we're too small for data. But the truth is, you are too small to not track your data. And that is because you have every dollar and every man hour so critical. So, why wouldn't you be efficient in the way that you are recording and keeping track of where things are going versus a larger company who kind of has that cushion, if you will,
Hmm.
in their account? So, it could really be your life preserver and your guiding light when times get hard and you're thinking, like, am I even making the right decision? Go back to your data. Just the other day, we were talking about some pricing issues we had. And I said, "What data do you have?" And it was kind of crickets. Like you were like, a couple phone calls or something.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Okay, so here's our plan on gathering the actual data. I'll get it by this time.
Yeah.
And then let's reassess and see if you still feel the same." And you
And
can do that with everything.
I think to that point of, like, say you are small, you're just 1 or 2 people or whatever, maybe you don't need 30 points of metrics of stuff that you're tracking.
Hmm.
So maybe you don't need all of it, but you definitely don't need none of it. There's definitely things that you should still be tracking. And some of that is going to be like, look at those departments again, start with that frame of like at a high level, what would justify that this is running smoothly. But then also like track your own anxiety as well. So for me, I get really anxious when we're not booked out. And that by far is one of the biggest ones that I look at. And then as well as that, like accounts receivable and stuff like that. So those are some of the big ones that I look at
Hmm.
and to track as far as, that smiley frowny face on, day to day for the how's the customer feel. I don't know. I probably that one is not one that really affects me a whole lot because I look at like our 5-star reviews and our fixes and stuff like that for that measure.
But that one is more for front desk
It
to
is.
see
Yeah.
like customers are good.
Yeah.
They're happy. You know?
And then I think lastly is don't think you'll do this once and then you'll never change the metrics that you pay attention to.
Yeah, you'll realize some are stupid. You're like, why are
Yeah.
we tracking this?
You'll realize some are stupid, and then you'll realize other ones that you wish you would have put on there.
And you'll tweak.
Um, Rule of thumb is if the number that you're tracking goes up and you do nothing, or if it goes down and you do nothing, you probably don't need to track it.
Mm.
But if that number skyrockets and it makes you do something or like panic, like there's a problem there, that's probably a good one to pay attention to. And then vice versa, if it plummets and then you're panicking to figure out why, it's probably a good one to pay attention
Yeah.
to. But if it goes up or down, you do nothing, you probably don't need to track it.
But typically by tracking, you're going to make changes regardless. It's
Hmm.
human nature. It's kind of like people who try to lose weight. It's like a proven thing. If you just step on a scale every day, you start to lose weight
Yeah.
because you're just aware of that number in the back of your head. So it's the same thing here. One of the metrics we talked about earlier was the overtime hours of our team.
Hmm.
That is a stressor for me because I was the one that was having employees come in to talk to me saying, Andrew, hey, Andrew runs a sweatshop. And he would say, no, I don't. And there was no data on it. Whereas now I can say, your team racked up 60 hours of overtime in 1 week. That's a problem. And there's no more argument anymore because it's data. Whereas it used to be an argument between us.
Yeah.
Now it's not. So if you have a business partner or a manager or someone that maybe there's a point of contention that you keep arguing, is there a way to assign a numerical value or a metric to it that might get rid of the argument and just say, like, let's just let the numbers talk for themselves?
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty cool thing to do. And if you ever watch Shark Tank, they always talk about how they never invest in anybody that doesn't know their numbers.
Hmm.
And I think this is like the most elementary version of knowing your numbers. So if you're brand new to this, I think this is a really good way to start, and you can only go up from there. But even if you're tracking two things, you got to start tracking
Yeah.
somewhere because we have definitely been completely blind. I remember when we first started off and we were absolutely drowning in debt, we asked a mentor to come in and help us because we just didn't even know what way was up.
Hmm.
And I believe, if I remember correctly, one of his very first questions was, like, how much debt are you in? We didn't even know the answer.
Hmm.
We didn't even know how much because I think we were avoiding figuring it out,
I,
slash, we were
yeah,
drowning.
just this. I just didn't want to
Yeah.
look.
And he was like, okay, let's start there. So, like, your homework is you are going to make a list of all the debt you're in. I just
Hmm.
want to know the number, the interest, blah, blah, blah. And our very first ever debt sheet was just a Google sheet.
Yep.
And
And we were staring at
each,
a $250,000 in debt.
the number was scary. But then to your point earlier, then he said, okay, we're going to track how much we're cutting off of it.
Hmm.
And it was going down.
Yeah.
Which is funny because how chaotic things were at the time, it was like, oh my gosh, we are getting nowhere. But it's like, we actually are. It just, we're not feeling the benefits of it yet.
Yeah.
So, real life story of like, we had no data. We didn't even know how much debt we were in,
Hmm.
and have kind of pulled our way into the system. And we ourselves have room to grow and better things we need to track. So, yeah, that's all about data. Do you want to close us out here?
No.
If you're looking on YouTube, he just looked at his little like paper we put together beforehand. So all right. Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you liked what you heard today, the biggest thing you could do for us is to share it with another wrap shop owner who you think this could help, or even someone in a different business. Maybe you have like a detailer friend or something who you think this episode could help them out. But go ahead, text this episode to them. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, you missed the beginning of Andrew's face today. So sorry about that. I definitely had the camera backwards, a little bit of a blonde moment there. But we're looking forward to welcoming you into the next episode. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye, guys.
The Wrap Institute, the largest online wrap training platform, now with a special offer. Use our code WRAPOPS15 for 15% off your order.